good morning, everybody. And Happy New Year, right? Okay, so it's a new year. The last time I was up here, I told you guys that my 2022 goal was to read 10 books, and that I was not going to accomplish that goal. But I want to tell you that I way surpassed that goal in 2022. I read such classics as Goodnight Moon, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Oh, the Places You'll Go. Yeah, and I read them over and over and over. I have most of them memorized. So I did accomplish my, in fact, I'm thinking about going 20 books this year. I don't know. Maybe add a little diversity to the books that I'm reading. I'm not sure. So it's kind of up to my kids, honestly. It was a good year. I'm excited for a new year. We're excited about what Real Life has planned this year. Really excited to start the year by going through the book of Matthew. And so that's what we are doing. Clint kind of kicked us off last week with a little bit of an intro message. This is kind of also a little bit of an intro message, kind of setting the theme, because we're going to be in this for a while. We're going to be in this series going through Matthew together until Easter. And so we invite you to read the book of Matthew with us. You don't necessarily, not that we have a reading plan, but because we're not hitting every chapter, but we invite you just to be reading Matthew and just familiarizing yourself with it, because that's where we're going to be, and there's just some really good stuff we're going to be unpacking. There's a lot you can cover. It was really hard to take 28 chapters of Matthew and fit it into like 13 weeks. You have to skip a lot of good stuff that it just feels wrong to skip some of it, but you're like, man, like there's kind of a running theme, so we kind of stay with the theme. So we're calling it Welcome Matt, and two reasons. So Matt being short for Matthew, because Matthew's the first book of the New Testament and the first gospel account, which would be a book written about Jesus' life and ministry. And so it's kind of your welcome mat into the New Testament. But there's also some deeper theme reasons that we're calling it this, that we're going to start unpacking today, start introducing today. Clint touched on a little bit of it last week, but we're really going to just start setting the pace here for what this really means and what Matthew is really trying to communicate in this book. Because it is more than just an account of Jesus' life and ministry. He is trying to say more than just that Jesus is the Son of God. And so to do that today, I'm going to do something really weird and kind of boring, okay? I know, but don't worry. I can't really do boring, okay? I can't do boring. So it is boring, but I'm not going to make it boring. We're going to have fun with this. Can we have a little fun this morning? Yeah, we can praise God and have fun at the same time, right? That makes sense. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to speak on Matthew chapter 1, which is Matthew's genealogy of Jesus. So Jesus' family lineage from Abraham all the way to Jesus. So I'm actually going to speak today on the genealogy. Doesn't that sound awesome? Yeah. And there's a few reasons I'm doing this. The first reason is because it's weird, and I like to do weird things, okay? I really do. I like to do weird things. I like to do things that throw people off and just creates a little like, oh, what's going on here? And the genealogy definitely does that. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because Matthew started with it for a reason. It is how he starts his book, and he does that on purpose for a reason, and we need to discover what that reason is. And the third reason is because it actually sets up our theme just perfectly. The theme that we're going to be going through, it sets it up just perfectly in this. But I know exactly how it is. Like, you guys are like me in this way. Like, we're American Christians, right? So I would do exactly what you would do if you were at home and you started reading Matthew. We would skip the genealogy, right? Yes, all of us would do that. None of us would sit at home and actually study the genealogy. You might read through it just to say you read, but most of us are just going to skip it. You're reading your Bible, you hit a genealogy, and it's like, I'm just going to skip that. Because what can you get out of a genealogy, right? What could God tell us through a genealogy? So that's what we're going to do today, because I like to be weird. And so here's the thing. I could stand up here and read you the genealogy, and we'd have a great time. But I thought this week, is like, why would I read the genealogy when I could have other people read the genealogy instead? And that would be fun. And then my friends Hunter and Jacob on staff here, they said, hey, it's generational. You should have Ken Morris, Derek Warren, and his son Gibson Warren read the genealogy for you. I was like, that is an excellent idea. And so I am not going to read you the genealogy this morning because I would just butcher all the names. I'm going to let Ken and Derek and Gibson butcher the names for me. And so why don't we check this out. Here's your genealogy.
Matthew 1, verses 1 through 6. This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez the father of Hezron. Hezron the father of Ram. Wow. And Ram the father of Amminadab. Let me try that again. Amminadab. Amminadab the father of Nahshon. Nahshon the father of Salmon. Salmon the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David.
David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Solomon, the father of Rehoboam. Rehoboam, the father of Abijah. Abijah, the father of Asa, the father of Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat, the father of Jehoram. Jehoram was the father of Uzi. Uzi, the father of Jotham. Jotham, the father of Uzzah. Was the father of Hizkiah. Hizkiah, the father of Manasseh. Manasseh, the father of Ammon. Ammon, the father of Josiah. And Josiah, the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers at the time of the exile of Babylon.
After the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel. Shealtiel, the father of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, the father of Abiud. Abiud, the father of Eliakim. Eliakim, the father of Azer. Azer, the father of Zadok. Zadok, the father of Achim. Achim, the father of Eliud. Eliud, the father of Eliezer. Eliezer, the father of Matthan. Matthan, the father of Jacob. And Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ.
Wow. Wasn't that so much better than me standing up here and reading all that? Yes, thank you. Thank you. So there's some stuff to unpack here. And even though it might not seem like it, there is, I promise. And let me set this up, though, with some broader context of the book of Matthew that's really important to get this, to understand this as we go into reading Matthew and what he's trying to do. Matthew, we have to understand, is a Jewish man writing to a Jewish audience, okay? So he is a Jewish man. He's writing to a Jewish audience. And so this alone creates some things that they do in how they write that as Western American Christians, we just don't really, we don't pay that much attention. Like the way we operate is, you just tell me what I need to know, I'll memorize it, test me on it, and I'm good to go. I know what I need to know. And that is just not how they operate. We are so cut and dry, so straightforward, and that is not how the Eastern world operates. And so there are ways that they communicate, there are things they use when they write that we just don't really pay attention to, like we skip a genealogy, right? It's like, you can't learn anything from a genealogy except for just memorizing names. But that's not how they operate. So we got to understand, he's a Jewish man writing to a Jewish audience. On top of that, what we need to know about Matthew is that he was one of Jesus' disciples. And a disciple is not just a student the way we think of it, where we're going to spend several hours a day in the teacher's classroom, and then we go home, we have weekends and vacations. A disciple of this level in this day, you live with this rabbi, you walk with, eat with, you imitate their every step, every move, how they think, you think, what they say, you say. I mean, you fully imitate your rabbi. And so he was a disciple, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus, and on top of that was a tax collector. And this is a big deal because it was a very elite thing to be a disciple. No tax collector had any business being a disciple, because when you have Israel, which is God's chosen people, and then you have the Roman Empire who now rules the known world, including Israel, they decide what Israel can and can't do. This is a problem for God's chosen people, that now a pagan nation decides what they can and can't do. And so they decide who they pay taxes to, how much they pay in taxes, all these kinds of things. And so what they would do in the region, in the Israel region, Jerusalem region, is they would get young Jewish men, and they would basically get them to become traitors to their own people, and they would assign them to collect the taxes for Rome from their own people. And anything they wanted to charge, they just keep what's on top. As long as they give to Rome what's Rome's, they get to keep the rest. So these people were despised because not only are they now a traitor to their nation and to their family, but this is God's chosen people. I mean, they are a traitor to God himself. So this is like the lowest of the low, that a Jewish man would collect taxes for Rome, yet somehow he becomes, Jesus invites him to become one of his disciples. This is unheard of. This is crazy that he would do this. And so for Matthew to be writing this account of Jesus and who he is, it's so important to understand who Matthew is and how shocked everyone would have been, including Matthew, that he was allowed to be a disciple, that Jesus, the Son of God, would have ever even paid attention to a tax collector. And this makes all the difference when we start to learn what he's trying to accomplish here. And so, what could there be to learn from a genealogy? What is special or different about Matthew's genealogy? I'm going to give you three things, and they're simple things, but check this out. The first thing is, there are women. There are women in the genealogy. And this is weird because there's not usually, if you read any other genealogy in the Bible, there's not women in the genealogy. It's just fathers and sons, fathers and sons, fathers and sons. So Matthew's Jewish audience would be reading a genealogy, because they wouldn't skip it, they'd read it, and they'd notice women, and that's weird. And they'd notice that that's weird. So they'd ask, why are there women in the genealogy? The next thing is that there are women with stories the audience knows in the genealogy. These aren't random women in the genealogy. When they would see the women that are listed in the genealogy, they have stories that the audience is very familiar with. They know these stories: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, the wife of Uriah, and Mary. And the third thing, the third layer to this, is that there are women with scandalous stories that the audience knows. And so I'm just going to title this next part, The Bad Girls of the Bible. It's got a nice ring to it, right? There was a book written back, I think, in the 90s called The Bad Girls of the Bible, went through these characters. So I thought, I like it, I'm going to use it. So these are the bad girls of the Bible. What I want to do is I want to kind of briefly run through the stories. I'm not going to tell the stories, but just like what do we know? What does the audience generally know about these women? It's going to be really quick. And so this is adult content here, okay? This is adult church, it's adult content. I thought that when Hunter Beard, our new kids director, I thought when he interviewed for the position, I thought one of the tests should be he has to take one of these stories and teach it to the kids and just see how he does, see how it plays out. For example, Tamar tricks her father-in-law into sleeping with her and gets pregnant. I'd like to see how Hunter handled that with the kids. I think that'd be interesting. It's a good test of like how you can take, teach the Bible to children. I don't know. It got shot down. They weren't interested, but I thought it'd be funny. So, Rahab, prostitute. Ruth, not Jewish. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to us, but we are reading a royal line of Israel. We are reading from Abraham to Jesus. We are reading King David's lineage here. It's a big deal that then there's somebody in there. They get to Ruth and they go, she's not Jewish, but she's in the lineage. She's in the genealogy. And I want to camp out on this one for a second. Wife of Uriah. Her name was Bathsheba. Bathsheba cheats on her husband with King David, and David has him killed in battle. Okay, this is not like the story we usually tell about King David. We like the David and Goliath part, or like those kind of cool things. But the fact that David sleeps with another man's wife, and then to cover his tracks ends up having the man killed, is a bad mark on David's reputation, right? Probably not a story he was hoping to end up in the Bible. And I think it's totally on purpose that Matthew does not say Bathsheba. He says wife of Uriah, because when they are reading this genealogy and they see the phrase wife of Uriah, it is a direct signal to, they know exactly what that's pointing to. This was another man's wife David slept with here. But that son is in the genealogy. This couple is in the lineage. And then it goes to Mary, who was pregnant out of wedlock. And here's why I lead to this. They would think, we like to Bible things up sometimes and pretend it's not real life, it didn't really happen. Like we make the Bible characters like very like Bible-y, right? Not like real people. They would have thought exactly what we would think if someone walked in the doors and said, I'm pregnant, but I'm a virgin, God did it. Real? Yeah, okay, yeah. Good. Right? I mean, come on. The Jewish audience is going to think the same thing we would think now if someone said that. Now, I am by no means saying that Mary was lying. I absolutely believe in the Immaculate Conception, absolutely. But the audience, the Jewish audience, to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, like, come on, do you know how he was born? Do you know his mom? You know that story? I mean, this was a huge roadblock for them. People would have had a hard time believing, that doesn't even sound right, right? But I think what Matthew's point is, your roadblock is you can't believe that God would use this person or story because it doesn't look the way you think it should look. It doesn't look how you think it should look, so you don't believe it. Well, let me show you. Let me show you the revered lineage of your people. Let me show you the royal line that we hold in such high esteem. And as he goes through it, he adds in other women, other stories that they hold in high regard. But he points out these women and these stories for a reason to show this didn't look the way people thought it should look either. But it is the story God used. They are the people God used. So your stumbling block to believing in Jesus is that Mary doesn't look the way you think it should look. Well, look at all these people. Look at all these stories. And so he sets this up beautifully. And so this leads us into one of the major underlying themes of Matthew. God is for people that we do not expect. He is for them. Now, don't lose me here when I say this. God is not on your team. He is not on your team. I hope you are on God's team. God is not on your team. And here's why I say that. Because we all easily get locked into thinking that it's us in here versus them out there. That God is on our team and that we are against all those people out there who are not with him. And God is not on your team. We need to get on his team. And God is for the people we don't expect. He is for them. He is not mad at them. He's not waiting to crush them. He's not asking us to wage war on them. He died for them. He would leave the 99 for them. He's for them. And this is sometimes the struggle with the book of Psalms for me. The God-breathed word of God. I totally believe that. It's inspired. But David spends so much time asking God to crush his enemies. And in a post-Jesus context, and an after-Jesus context, once Jesus has died for all Christians, we do not pray that God crushes our enemies if they're flesh and blood enemies. We have no flesh and blood enemies. We have spiritual enemies. We have no flesh and blood enemies. God is for them. He's put us here for them. If we're on his team, we should be for them. That their sin should not make us mad. It should break our hearts if we really understand the trap and entanglement of sin. He's for them. And so here's kind of, this is a people thing, right? This isn't like a Christian thing. It's not a Jewish thing. It's just a people thing. Maybe there's a time in your life you experience this where you have a boss or a teacher or a parent or a coach, somebody like that in authority who starts to take a special interest in you, and they're really complimenting you. Like, man, you're exceptional, you're doing a great job, man, like you're just like, you're exactly what we hope for in our employees or our team members or our students, right? Like you get this kind of praise from them. What is usually going to happen in us when we receive that kind of praise? How are we going to start seeing the other people on the team less than? It's just a human thing. We have to fight hard against it. I mean, maybe not you, but I got to admit, I do. Because when you start receiving that kind of favor, that kind of praise, it's easy to start seeing everybody else as less than. But they're not less than. And so it's understandable for the nation of Israel, who's been told for generations and generations that they're the chosen people, that if they will follow God, God will bless them, right? It's easy for them to start seeing everyone else as less than. Well, we're the chosen ones. They're not the chosen ones because of anything they did to deserve being the chosen ones. Nothing. Quite the opposite. We did not do anything to deserve any favor or blessing God gives to us. And so then to start getting trapped in seeing other people or people groups as less than, and to start naming who's in and who's out, who God's for and who God's against, who really is a Christian and who really isn't a Christian. Not a place we should ever go as followers of Jesus. Ever. It is not our place to do that. It's understandable how they got there, but it is not our place. It's a danger. We cannot ever push someone out or push someone aside because it doesn't look the way we think it should look. And that's Matthew's point. That God is for the people you thought he wasn't for. He's for the people we sometimes get trapped in thinking he's not for. And there's like three categories that represented here that I noticed. First of all, there's some sin issues in this list of women, right? There's some legitimate like sin stuff going on here. And I think Matthew points that out to go, even then, even when they did actually do something wrong, even when they actually did live in sin, God was not against them, he was for them. God used them. Even in the sin issues. But I get it. It's easy to start looking at and start like making our ranks and our judgments based on people's sin issues, right? Well, I would never do that. Well, I'm not the kind of person that does that, right? And we like to rank that up. And in the second category, there's another woman, there's a woman in there, there's no sin issue, she's just not Jewish. So now we have a people group thing. That we start making our ranks of who's in and who's out based on people groups. And I don't just mean race people groups, I mean there's all kinds of political affiliation people groups. All kinds of way of life people groups that we can fall into the trap of now we're going to start naming who's in, who's out, who's less in, who's really with God, who's really not with God, and we can start drawing up all our conclusions. And then there's reputation. Mary's she didn't do anything wrong. She just has a bad reputation. Not even a deserved bad reputation. She has a bad reputation. And so they draw their conclusions based on the reputation. Well, do you know her story? You know what she did? You know what happened? And we can fall into the trap that we're going to make our conclusions based on people's reputation. Because it doesn't look the way we think. It doesn't matter how we think it should look. And so that leads me to really my first big takeaway, that God uses stories we don't expect. He uses stories we don't expect him to use. If you think about your life, the most impactful stories in your life, not that you've heard, that you've lived, the stories that shaped you and changed you, the most impactful stories in your life, are not stories you would have expected to be the shaping stories, the landmark stories. In the middle of those stories happening, you were miserable. You thought, I've blown it. I'm in too deep. How can I ever get out of this? How could this have ever happened to me? How could they have done that to me? What do I do? You thought there's no return. These are the stories that at the time you thought it was the end. And it was the story God used the most. Because he uses stories we do not expect. So Matthew's message is, if Mary's story is your holdup, to his Jewish audience, if her story is your holdup, God uses stories we don't expect all the time. And I think there's a slight nod. I think the whole undertone from Matthew is there's a slight nod of, look at me, people. Tax collector, traitor. He used me. He chose me. He was for me. He uses people we don't expect. He uses stories we don't expect. And that's the second one, that God uses people we don't expect. So I did an internship. When I was about to graduate Bible college, I had to do an internship. So it was at a large church in Bloomington. And I'm at this church in Bloomington, and it came time where I was going to have to give the message to the high school group. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but this high school group was like 300 to 400 high schoolers. That was their weekly Sunday morning. And so now I have to give the message to 300 to 400 high schoolers, right? And I'm like 21, 22 years old, and so I'm just terrified. And so I'm just like slaving over this message all week, just like making it perfect, polishing it up, like so nervous to get up and do this. Very little speaking experience at this point. So I get up Sunday morning, and I get up there, and I'm nervous. I give the message. I walk off stage. I'm like, hope that was good. Like, you never know, right? Until people, you just like, I'm not sure, but hopefully it was good. And I was feeling decently confident about it. Then some 14-year-old girl gets on stage and gives her testimony in 4 minutes and just blows me out of the water. People are crying. The whole place, I'm like, she said more in 4 minutes as a 14-year-old girl than I said in 30 minutes as a Bible college student. I was like, this stinks. But God uses people that you don't expect. We expect he's going to use the one on stage giving the message. And he might not. We expect he's going to use the one with the title. And he might not. And some of us get caught up in that. Well, I'm not the boss. I'm not the manager. I'm not the coach. I'm not the captain. Like, I'm not the leader. Like, he's not going to use me. And we get so caught up in what we can't do because of who we are and our position and title and what they can do better than us and all this stuff. And God can use people that we don't expect. And he often uses people we don't expect. And this is why Paul says it's in our weakness he's made strong. He's like, I could do something with that. If you think you got it all together, you got the title and you're the hot shot with all the skills, well, he can't do much with that. But in our weakness, he goes, I can work with that. I can work with a story. I can work with somebody who's aware that they need me. So God uses people we do not expect. There's this great verse. Jesus had the hardest time. Like his hardest time was with the religious people, the really religious people who thought like they looked exactly how they were supposed to look, right? They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They look how they're supposed to look. So anybody who doesn't look how they're supposed to look, they're the problem. And this is the people Jesus had the hardest time with, when they'd make all their judgments based on all the people who didn't look how they were supposed to. And so there's this story where they're going, Jesus, why do you hang out with these people? Why are you hanging out with sinners? Why are you hanging out with prostitutes and thieves and tax collectors? Why are you hanging out with all them? They're not in. God's not for them. They're not in. And he says, I did not come here for the healthy. I came here to heal the sick. I came for the sick. They're who I came here for. But it doesn't look the way we thought it was supposed to look. And we do this now. We've got people and people groups, and we've got all these lists and these labels and these things that we go, well, God's not for them. Wait, isn't that our enemy? Isn't that the church's enemy? Look at what they're saying online. Look what they're saying on the news. Look what they're saying in Hollywood. Aren't they our enemy? No. They're our mission. Jesus said, I didn't come for the healthy. I came to heal the sick. The person you know that's the furthest from God, he goes, that's the one I want. Yes. This is the story of Paul, who wrote a large portion of our New Testament, did more to spread Christianity across the globe than anyone in history. He was killing Christians. He was killing them because they followed Jesus. And God said, that's the one I want. And then he became number one on the team because God uses people we don't expect. Christians, listen to me. We cannot get trapped in starting to name who's in, who's out, who's less, who's a Christian, who's not. We cannot go down that road. And I get it, because like you hang around church long enough, you do the Christian thing long enough, I get it. It's easy to start. You forget, right? You forget how messed up you were in the conversion back when it happened, and you get caught up in like, you've been doing the right thing for so long, you've been doing the church thing, reading your Bible, doing all this stuff, that it's easy to slip right back into, now you're going to start looking at all the people not doing what you're doing, and they're less than. God's not for them. Or they totally turn away, and they're bad-mouthing God, and they hate Christians, and they're hanging flags and doing all these things, and like, they're protesting, and you go, aren't they the enemy? No, we have no flesh and blood enemy. We have a spiritual enemy, and what the spiritual enemy wants you to do is start drawing all kinds of divisions and start saying who's in, who's out. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Christians. Anybody can say anything they want, and most people just roll their eyes and go, whatever, he's an idiot. A Christian says something about somebody, and it carries some weight. Even if they don't think they don't buy the Christian thing, or they don't like Christians, they don't like Christians because of how much weight our words carry, and they heard what we said. Yes. It's like they know. It's like under the surface they know that we represent somebody, that we represent God. Even if they say they don't believe in God, I'm just telling you, it's weird. It's like they know those words carry weight because they represent God. So we got to be careful with our words. We got to be careful with our labels. We got to be careful with how we see people and people groups. Because Matthew, the tax collector, the traitor to God and to his nation, was asked by Jesus to become one of his closest friends and followers. And then wrote the first book in the New Testament. That's amazing. And so this series, Welcome Matt, it's not just about being the first book. It's that Matthew is saying, everyone's welcome into this thing Jesus is doing, even the people you didn't expect to be invited. They're invited. And thank God they're invited, because that's why we're here today. Let me pray for us. God, we thank you so much for